There's no river here, and I don't mean it's low. I mean there isn't one. No stream, no lake, no spring. Nothing within a day's walk you could kneel down and drink out of. It hasn't rained in 11 weeks, and it won't rain for another 6 weeks. 80,000 people live here. They did this for 1,000 years. You wouldn't last more than 3 days. And the answer to how is still sitting in the mud at the bottom of one of these reservoirs. In 2020, a team cored it and pulled up the oldest known water filter on the planet. You're barefoot on white plaster that's been in the sun since 6. You've been thirsty since you woke up, and so has everybody else. Somewhere behind the tree line, a loud monkey cries out. The sound is not like a monkey at all. It sounds like a mad bear. The crazy part, no one looks up. They hear this every single morning. This is Tikal, northern Guatemala, around the year 700 AD. You are standing in a rainforest, a place that gets more rain in a year than Seattle does, and is practically a desert 5 months out of 12. I'll tell you this bit now, because it's disturbing. One of the things the Mire built to survive this conundrum has a body count, not the one you'd expect. And, more to the point, not the people you'd expect. Tikal's survival depended on 3 tenets. Where does the water come from in March when there are no rains? What do you eat when the fields do not grow? And underneath the two, how do you keep the water you have preserved from killing you? That's the jungle. It was never the jaguars. So we're doing all of it. The plazas, which aren't plazas. The swamp farms. The hole in the ground with cold air coming out of it. The volcanic rock somebody hauled in from far away. And the corn. And I know, the corn, in a video about water. Stay with me. You heard jungle, and your head went straight to water. Wet leaves, mist, that dripping noise. If anything, you probably assumed these people's problem was too much water. You're half right, which is infuriating. The Petén lowlands swallow up to 1,200 to 2,000 millimeters of rain a year, about 47 to 79 inches. London takes a third of that, and whimpers. This isn't consistent year-round, and that's the problem. In February, it averages 24 millimeters, which is just under an inch for the entire month. September averages nearly 250. So it's like getting your whole year's wages in June and then nothing at all until the following June. You're not poor. You've got plenty. You've just got a 5-month stretch every single year where everything depends on what you manage to hang on to. It was never a shortage. But you won't survive that. 3 days. 3 weeks without food? You'll crawl, but you'll live. 3 days without water? You're a corpse. In this blistering heat, you won't even get 48 hours because you leak constantly. You're about 60% water, and you are losing it right now, out through your skin and out through your breath, doing nothing, just sitting still, evaporating. The margin is what kills you. Lose 2% of your water mass. That's the equivalent of 1 morning's sweat, and you lose your sense of judgment. That's the cruel joke of dehydration. It steals your mind before it takes your body. You won't even notice. At 5%, panic sets in. At 10, you're dying, and you're dying confused. And that 10 isn't a human thing, by the way. Most mammals go into circulatory failure somewhere around 12. It's not that you're weak, it's that almost nothing is built for this. A camel can lose 30% of its weight in water and just keep walking. Kangaroo rats do better. They never drink. Not in the wild, not in a lab, not once in a 6-year life. They eat dry seeds. They forge water inside their own bodies. Their kidneys clamp down so hard that nothing wastes away. But you aren't built like them. You get none of that. You are a bucket with a slow leak, and about 3 days in, it's empty. So 5 months of dry season is 150 consecutive days of a problem that kills you in 3. 50 times over, every year, for 1,000 years. And the ground you're standing on is about to make it considerably worse. The rain that falls here doesn't stay. Come back in September and stand in the same spot. The storm comes in fast. The sky turns a bruised, toxic green. The howler monkeys instantly go dead silent. Then it comes down hard, so violent it completely drowns out your own screams. 10 inches of water, dropped in brutal, blinding bursts, and by the time it stops, it's already gone. Straight down through the rock. It's underneath you within hours, and it might travel for decades down there before it comes back up somewhere else entirely, possibly in another country. Tip a glass of water onto a gravel driveway. That's the Petén. It's limestone the whole way down. Over millions of years, rainwater dissolves it. The rock stops behaving like rock. It turns into a sponge. Cracks, fissures, tunnels. A massive subterranean labyrinth rotting away in the dark. Geologists call it Karst. The result is pure nightmare. Enormous rainfall. A suffocating jungle fed by deep roots reaching the water you can't touch. But not a single river anywhere. A river needs a bed that holds water. This stone holds nothing. It's a bathtub with the plug ripped out. And the bottom is a colander. You can't dig your way out of it either. Up north in the Yucatan, the water table sits close enough to reach, which is what a cenote is, a sinkhole that's caved in and opened the groundwater up. But you're on a ridge. Yours is a very long way down, and you've got nothing to drill with. There's no down. There's only up, and whatever falls out of it. So you catch it, hold it for 5 months, and stop it from turning into soup. And the first thing they built to do that is something you've looked at 100 times without once seeing it. Move 1. The plaza isn't a plaza. Well, it is. You gather there. The king does kingly things there. All of that's true. But that's the side job. The main job is that the whole thing is a funnel. Go back to that September. Watch what the water does when it lands. It doesn't puddle. It doesn't soak in. It sheets. A fast, razor-thin wave racing across the plaster, all heading the same direction. Because every single inch of this ground was sealed with thick lime plaster, and then laid down at an angle. Bare stone drinks rain. Plaster repels it. Underneath the broken bedrock, archaeologists found the seal. Then, they realized the terrifying truth. The surfaces were canted, tilted, deliberately. The stone you're standing barefoot on is tilted, and it's steering the water straight toward the tanks. Downhill sits a massive chain of dammed reservoirs, stacked like a tiered fountain. Fill the top one, and the rest cascade into place. The dam at the very bottom, holding back the palace reservoir, is a behemoth. It's the largest ancient dam ever discovered in the Maya world. Cut stone, rubble, packed earth, over 260 feet long, 33 feet high, trapping 20 million gallons of water right beneath you. Hold that image next to the phrase primitive jungle civilization for a second. Let it sink in, and you can walk right across the top of it. They call it the Causeway Dam because the Maya used this colossal barrier as a highway. Of course they did. Who wouldn't? Think about a modern stadium roof. It's engineered to throw rain into hidden gutters and downpipes, completely invisible to the fans below. That is Tikal, a stadium roof the size of a city, and you live right on top of the roof. They didn't build a city that contained water infrastructure. The city is the infrastructure, and that matters enormously for how this story ends, for a reason that has absolutely nothing to do with water. Move 2. They farmed the swamp. In 2018, a plane flew over this jungle. They found 61,000 buildings. 61,000. In a single sweep. No one had the faintest idea they were down there. The device of choice? LiDAR. You rain down hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every single second. Enough of them slip through the thick canopy to strike the forest floor. Then, you delete every bounce that hit a tree. What's left is the raw earth, completely stripped bare. It is a digital X-ray for the jungle. The Parkunam survey tore through the scientific world. The staggering building count grabbed the headlines, but the real revolution lay beneath them. The lasers unmasked thousands of hidden farming features, terraces, canals, entire fields raised out of wetlands. In an instant, a decades-long debate was dead. Maya cities weren't just empty ceremonial showgrounds for priests and commuters. They were sprawling, breathing metropolises. To understand how, you have to look at the Bajos. The Bajos are seasonal swamps. In March, the earth is baked solid, cracked into jagged plates that bruise your feet. Come September, you'll be knee-deep in it, wading through mud that smells like a forgotten pond, slapping at mosquitoes, carving out drainage channels with a stone blade and an agonizing amount of patience. You scrape up the muck you've dug out and pile it into long, raised strips. Suddenly, you have fields sitting safely above the waterline. They are forged from the richest sediment for miles in any direction, flanked by channels that lock in water deep into the dry season. It's a raised garden bed. Same concept, same logic, except it was carved across hundreds of hectares, with zero metal tools. The worst land in the Petén, transformed by hand into an absolute marvel. But whose hand depends entirely on who you are. Because if you're the one breaking your back in that mud, you aren't the one living up on the stone plaza. And by the end of this story, that divide gets a lot uglier than it sounds. Move 3. Everybody had a tank in the yard. Imagine you live on the edge of the city. Here is your day. You walk to the reservoir and you haul back a full jar of water. That is a minimum 1-hour trek. More than once, every single day, for 5 straight months. So, you don't do it. You build your own tank at home. Watch a local open one. They crouch down, straining to wrench the heavy stone lid off the neck. They slide it aside. And the air that blasts out of that hole is cold, not cool. Cold, in March. In the blistering middle of the afternoon. That is a Chultun, a hidden chamber carved deep into the bedrock. A narrow neck with a heavy stone lid, opening up below into a subterranean room shaped like a bell. I will be direct. What these chambers were actually used for is one of the fiercest debates in this story. In some regions, they were water tanks. In others, dry storage. Some were later reused as tombs. At Tikal, very few were lined with plaster, which is exactly what you'd expect if they were meant to hold water. Out in the arid Puk Hills, the water tank theory is rock solid. At Tikal, it's a live argument. I won't pretend otherwise, but where there were cisterns, that narrow neck is the big secret. Leave a bowl of water on the counter and it evaporates in days. Put that same water in a bottle and it survives for a month because almost none of it touches the open air. Scale that up. Pack it with cold bedrock to act like a natural refrigerator. Then, slant a plastered apron inward around the mouth. It's the city-sized Plaza trick, shrunk down to your backyard. You own the cheap version, a rain barrel under a drain pipe. And the next one is the strangest thing anybody has ever pulled out of Maya mud. Move 4. They built a Brita filter 2,000 years ago, and then they ran it for 1,000 years. Here's what it was for. Stand at the edge of a major reservoir in April. 5 grueling months into the dry season. The water is dangerously low. It's warm as bathwater. A toxic green skin creeps around the edges, and the air reeks of a stagnant pond. That is your drinking supply, open to the elements, with a city of 80,000 people living directly uphill from it. You know what breeds in that water? Everything. And in this climate, gut disease will empty you out faster than the blistering sun ever could. It is a cruel irony. You can drink all day and still die from the very water keeping you alive. But in 2020, a team out of Cincinnati cored the sediment of Tikal's main drinking reservoir. Deep in the undisturbed layers, they found something that had absolutely no business being there: zeolite, mixed with coarse quartz sand. Zeolite is a volcanic rock riddled with microscopic pores. Imagine a sponge with holes so small that even bacteria get trapped. Water slips through, the pathogens don't. Radiocarbon dating proves this filtration system ran continuously for over 1,000 years, from the 2nd century BC right up to the 10th century BC. 1,000 years of pure water. It is the oldest advanced filtration system ever found on Earth. And here is the twist. Zeolite isn't native to Tikal. Someone had to hunt for it, haul it across the landscape, and deposit it precisely where the city's water supply entered. Did they know about bacteria? Absolutely not. But they knew that water passing through this gritty stone tasted sweeter and kept people off their backs. It is science, with the explanation missing. Right, the body count. Same year, same journal. A completely different nightmare. Scientist David Lentz and his team sampled the sediment of 4 major reservoirs. Corriental came back clean. Palace and Temple did not. They were loaded with high mercury and the chemical signatures of toxic algal blooms. Now look at the map. Palace and Temple sit at the ceremonial heart of Tikal, ringed by royal palaces and towering monuments. These were the grand reservoirs the kings staked their entire divine authority upon. Meanwhile, the clean reservoir, Corriental, was pushed out to the southeastern edge, the one serving you. The elite water was the poisoned water. Let's pause for exactly 2 sentences. Because this discovery is the entire reason this channel exists. Everybody covers the pyramids. Almost nobody covers the mud. If that's your kind of story, hit subscribe. Let's keep digging. And that brings us to the dark truth we've been dodging this entire time. If this system was brilliant enough to run for a millennium and advanced enough to filter its own drinking water, what actually happened to it? Why does almost nothing like it survive anywhere else on Earth? Hang on to that question. We have 2 more things to uncover first. Move 5. They re-engineered the corn. A hidden vitamin in your dinner is out of reach, and in 12 months, it will kill you. Maize is a miracle and a trap. It grows anywhere, stores beautifully, and yields massive crops. But eat it on its own, and it completely takes you apart. The culprit is niacin, or vitamin B3. It is right there in the corn, but it's locked inside a chemical cage your gut cannot open. It passes straight through you. Live on untreated maize, and you contract pellagra. First come the skin lesions, then diarrhea, then dementia, then death. Europe learned this the hard way. When corn crossed the Atlantic after 1492, the crop traveled, but the recipe didn't. Pellagra tore through the impoverished populations of Italy, Spain, and the American South well into the 20th century. Millions of people ate until their stomachs were full, yet starved to death because of a single vitamin trapped inside their food. The missing recipe is nixtamalization. And here's the beauty of it. You didn't invent it. The earliest tools used for this process date back to 1500 BCE on Guatemala's southern coast, centuries before any of these grand cities ever existed. An ancient secret, handed down through generations. And not a single person in that chain knew why it worked. You can smell it happening from the other side of the compound. Wood smoke first, then the lime, a sharp, mineral scent, almost like a swimming pool. Underneath it all, the rich aroma of popcorn as the corn cooks. Inside the pot, the kernels swell, soften, and slough off their skins. You rinse the husks away. What's left hits the grinding stone wet and transforms into dough. What happened inside that boiling pot was alchemy. The alkali was the key that shattered the lock. It frees the trapped niacin. It balances the proteins. It infuses the grain with calcium and binds it into a dough that actually holds together. It is the sole reason the tortilla exists. So, where does that life-saving lime come from? Limestone, the exact same rock that swallowed all your water. You burn it, you douse it, and you cook your dinner in it. Hang on to that. It's about to matter. Move 6. They overbuilt it, deliberately. They built for double what they needed, 60 to 80,000 people. To survive 5 months of drought, they need 400,000 cubic meters of water. Tikal's reservoirs held over 900,000. That is running your phone at 100% when you only need 50. It looks like waste, right up until the day the charger dies. But there is no machine to switch on. Every inch of that plaster has to be resurfaced before the storms hit. A cracked plaza is a leaking plaza. A central switching station controls the seasonal flow, meaning someone has to make the call. And they have to be right. There is not a single pump in this entire empire. The whole machine runs downhill on gravity, rain, and a colossal amount of perfectly timed human labor. That is the second time we've hit this truth. So let's just say it plainly. A system without machines runs entirely on human bone and muscle. Which human depended entirely on the lottery of birth. Up on the stone plaza, the system is invisible. Water is simply there, the way it is simply there for you. But down in the valley, someone is wading through toxic mud, cutting channels. Someone is baked under the sun with a bucket of lime before the storms hit. For them, it is an infrastructure. It is a grueling, lifelong job, repeated every single year until their bodies break. Those people left no inscriptions. We will never know a single name. They are not the ones buried beneath the towering temples. They were, however, the ones drinking from the reservoir that came back clean. The jungle wasn't the enemy. Right, the question I left hanging. For 20 minutes I've been telling you the jungle was the problem, the enemy, the thing these people were surviving. I want to take that back. Every single solution in this empire is forged from one thing: limestone. The plaster sealing your plazas? Burnt limestone. Your reservoirs? Cut into limestone. Your hidden Chultun? Carved from it. The towering pyramids? Limestone. Even the corn on your plate tonight was cooked in lime, straight out of the stone. The very rock that stole every river in the region is the same rock that handed you waterproofing building blocks, survival tanks, and a way to make your food worth eating. It didn't just hand you a nightmare, it handed you the weapon to destroy it. Then, the forest did the exact same thing. Twice. First, because this isn't wilderness. Archaeologists argue the Maya forest isn't a jungle at all. It's a massive, ancient cycle of managed crops and tree orchards. They didn't live in wild nature. It was an imperial garden that got away from them. This landscape was manufactured, not found. And second, without the forest, none of this would still be here. When the cities finally emptied, the canopy closed over the top like a steel vault. No one quarried Tikal for roadstone. No one flattened the raised fields with a modern plow. No one built a modern metropolis over the reservoirs, the fate of almost every ancient city in Europe. Rome is buried under Rome. Tikal got a lid put on it. The jungle sealed the empire under 1,000 years of vegetation, waiting for a laser to pierce the canopy and find 61,000 buildings sleeping in the dark. The brutal environment that made it so hard to live here is the only reason we know they ever did. So, back to that morning, barefoot on white plaster, squinting against the glare, thirsty. In the distance, howler monkeys scream behind the trees. Every single inch of this city is alive, doing a job. The stone beneath you is tilted just a few degrees toward a tank. A hidden layer of lime plaster stops the water from vanishing into the bedrock. Downhill, the largest dam in Central America holds back 20 million gallons. Out on the edge of the city, someone slides a heavy stone lid aside and takes a freezing breath of air right to the face. Somewhere close, the scent of wood smoke and sharp lime drifts by. Someone is cooking corn in a way they cannot explain but are completely right about. There is no power grid here, no single point of failure to bring the empire to its knees. It has no off switch because it never had an on switch, and nobody designed it. Someone simply noticed a plastered floor stayed wet longer. Someone noticed water from the southeast tasted sweeter. Someone noticed the swamp grew better corn. It is 1,000 years of human beings keeping what worked and quietly discarding what failed. We put our water in a pipe, and ours is better, but our system demands continuous electricity and a legion of specialists to run it. If just one of those pieces snaps, the water vanishes for everyone. That same afternoon, theirs failed slowly, one neighborhood at a time. It did fail eventually, in the 9th century, and the argument over why is still fiercely ongoing. But that is for the next video. You will drink water today without giving it a single thought. Out of a sterile tap, purified by machinery you have never seen. Same body, same slow leak, same 3 days until you are a corpse. The only thin line separating you from the soul standing barefoot on that ancient plaza is 40 meters of pipe, and somebody else's job. So, if the pipes stop tomorrow, no taps, no bottles. What is the very first thing you would build? Tell me in the comments, because I have a bad feeling I'd be a lot worse at this than someone in 700 BC with a stone axe and a bucket of lime. Hit subscribe before you go, because the 9th century is coming. This system did eventually fail. There are 3 serious explanations for why, and they violently contradict each other. I won't just pick one and pretend the debate is over. That is the next Maya video, and it's the one I've been waiting to make. But first, we conquer the Nile. See you there.